Alright, so the next Limit Breaker quest has been officially scheduled. It is coming out on the 7th of this month. So less than a week away, right? And as always, since we did get some information, we're here to break down some of the better characters to use, how to prepare, what characters to work on in anticipation of the upcoming Limit Breaker quest. So straight away, to no one's surprise, slot number 1 is designed for the new character Nini. She as a whole has been mainly designed for Limit Breaker. We know she's going to be really good in that quest, and she's going to be even better this month since she is encouraged to be used here, because as you can see here in slot number 1, you're going against Heart Hollow characters. So ideally, I guess you do want to bring a Mind Hollow killer, but the rules in particular are Mind Attribute damage ×2, range damage ×2, and also killer effect ×5. So of course, Nini is going to be a really good character for this. The kind of unfortunate thing though is that Nini's realistically the only good character for this, because if we sort by Mind Hollow killers, and that's one of the main reasons why I was even excited for Nini in the first place, is because there's not that many, if any, good Mind Hollow killers, right? I mean, you can see here in the last 2 years, they released 5 of them. You know, you have some options here, but no one's going to have the same damage output as someone like Nini, for example, and they're going to overall clear a tad bit slower. Additionally, you're also more so encouraged to bring a ranged Mind Hollow killer, and that narrows the list down even more. And in that case, besides Nini, our 2 most recent Mind Hollow killers that are ranged are Donkanoji and of course also White Day Toshiro. Both of these characters really not that good for Limit Break in particular. You know, Donkanoji and Toshiro are good at minimum in epic raid content when there's only one boss, with the way their strong attacks work, for example. So taking them into the Limit Breaker quest, not going to be the greatest. So I think if you don't have Nini, your next best thing to do is disregard the Hollow Killer and bring a Mind Range character. And in that case, you have a decent set of options here. Better options per se. Obviously, none of these characters here are going to be as good as Nini in this particular quest, but if your main goal is just to get to stage 19 to get all the rewards, well, in that case then, one of the better characters to use is going to be 7th Anniversary Ichigo. His paralysis and also weakness is going to be really good for those poise mob stages, for example, but he is a ranged mind character. He is currently on the Burn the Wish banner, so if you did pull for Nini, didn't get it, but maybe got him, or you can use him as a good substitute. Many people, I'm assuming, have this character duped out. It's kind of expected if you've been playing the game for a long time, right? He was in both 8th Annie and 7th Anniversary, and now the Burn the Wish banner. So if you don't have Nini, definitely try and bring out Ichigo, right? And I'd say your next best character after that is going to be Bargo and Asushi. Again, no killer effect here, but they are a mind character. They can apply the weakening. Salt Bomb does do a respectable amount of damage, so if you're trying to nuke on his particular stage against the poised enemies, you can definitely do that. Won't be as fast when compared to Ichigo or Nini, for example, but again, if you don't have any other options, this character is definitely serviceable. Other than those 3, I mean, again, you have some options. I wouldn't recommend bringing Nat characters, but I have done it myself. So Okiura and also Rukia, for example. I definitely want to experiment more with Nat characters in Limit Breaker, but they're definitely not encouraged when compared to SP characters since they're naturally faster. Orihime and I guess also Swimsuit Byakuya, damage output won't be as high. But again, if you're really limited on your options here, and they're your only good options, then by all means try and bring them out. Assuming your 2 other characters are good enough, you might still be able to get to stage 19. But for those that are wondering why Nini in particular to be really good in this Limit Breaker quest, besides the fact that it's kind of designed around her, is that one of the drawbacks about this character is that she has a quite low damage output unless the gauge is active. And since she does have the gauge rampage skill, you're going to easily fill up that gauge constantly, and maybe, very likely, you're going to have the gauge active at all times, allowing you to take full advantage of that Frenzy +2, high Berserker value, and SP boost. So yeah, personally, I like this character, looking forward to trying her out. And I guess it's worth mentioning when it comes to the slot number 1 character, you are going to have burn pools, so being immune to burn is definitely something you want to strive for. Again, if you don't have Nini, 7th Anniversary Ichigo, immune to all status elements, definitely going to be a good option. But moving into slot number 2, in this case we are once more going against hollow enemies, but this time they're a mind attribute. So you want to bring a Heart Hollow Killer. And the rules this time around include heart damage ×2, melee damage ×2, and killer effect ×2. There are also paralysis pools on this particular map. Now the killer effect in particular is on the lower side, only a ×2 increase when compared to Nini's 5 times increase. So while it is encouraged you bring a Heart Hollow Killer, especially a melee Heart Hollow Killer, if you don't have killer, it's not that big of a deal. So if we have a look at our Heart Hollow Killers, there's not that many good ones. This was an attribute and killer combination that has been neglected for a very long time, until recently, early this year, we did get Bruno and also Swimsuit Rangiku, both very good characters. But remember, we are encouraged to bring a Heart Hollow Killer that is a melee character. And in that case, while it's true you can bring Rangiku because she is a Heart Hollow Killer, you're better off not bringing her because she isn't getting that 2 times damage output by being a melee character. So realistically, the perfect character here is the Parasol version of Bruno, which is very limited because other than him, your other melee hot holo killers, I mean, it's basically like Mugetsu and also the free-to-play Ichigo, right? But again, lucky for us, the killer increase isn't that big, so you can actually just bring any heart character, really. Any melee heart character should do just fine, and in that case, you have some more options. Of course, the 1000-year Blood War round 16 Ichigo, but more interestingly, you could potentially get away with using Kyogre again. Kyogre was like one of the better characters used last month, and in this case, since he is a heart melee character, sure, he doesn't have killer, but he does have the rampage skill. He does make it so the next time he is available, all his strong attacks are ready to go. He's definitely someone that's worth using if you don't have Bruno, and with him in your team, assuming your other characters are good enough, you should easily be able to get 2 stage 20 to get all the rewards. And then lastly, for slot number 3, we are going against speed, no affiliation enemies. Remember, this is the flexible slot, so ideally you can bring any technique character here. In some cases, you might not even need to bring a tech character, but ideally, slot number 3 is for you to bring any character you want to. Maybe your best technique character, for example. And there are no affiliation enemies, so at first glance, you might want to bring a tech no affiliation killer. Some of the better ones, of course, being Safui Gin and also Alpic Ichigo, but their damage output like isn't super high. You'd be better off bringing any other like more relevant new character for the most part. And right now, before the quest even comes out, I'm thinking maybe Quincy Ichigo is gonna be the better character for this slot, the best character for slot number 3. Obviously, his damage output is ridiculously high. He doesn't have killer, but it doesn't matter. But again, very similar to Kyogre, as we did mention, is that every time you move into another map, it recovers his strong attacks. So by the time Ichigo's ready to go, all his attacks will be back. And since this stage in particular, the stages for slot number 3, the enemies have less HP, you might be able to just brute force your way through with this particular character. Other than that though, you might be able to get away using Bambietta. She does have a good damage output, right? Of course, beyond Bankai Tosha can be really good. Safui Retsu, for example. Essentially for slot number 3, just bring your best technique character. Heck, you might even be able to bring this particular character for slot number 3. She doesn't have killer, she doesn't have attribute advantage, but if you saw our video last month, it almost doesn't matter. We brought her against technique enemies, and she was still really good. Yeah, she just has an insane damage output, especially with the rampage skill, and she's always going to be a really good character, a third good character in any given month, regardless of the killer combination, regardless of the attribute combination. But I'm thinking right now the best character for slot number 3 is definitely going to be this particular character, mainly due to the fact that he's going to have his strong attacks ready to go every time he's next available. So right now, this is probably going to be the more conventional team that people will bring if you have all 3 characters. I understand not everyone's going to have these 3, but if you want to go as far as you possibly can, having these 3 characters is going to be more ideal for this upcoming Limit Breaker quest. Don't have those 3, your next best options might be these 3 particular characters. Ichigo's a good substitute for slot number 1. Kyogre, despite not having killer, should be still really good for slot number 2. If you have him max transcended on more dupes when compared to Bruno, he might even be a significantly better character than Bruno, keep that in mind. And then again, slot number 3, you can really bring anyone. In this case, at least for me, my next best character for technique is Toshiro. With that said though, before we do end the video, early this week on the reveal of the new characters, they did actually quickly demonstrate how Nini is going to perform in the upcoming Limit Breaker quest, so we can see the map layout just briefly. We can't see every single map, but we can get a brief look at it. This is what it's going to start off with, and you can kind of see too, Caleb know exactly what characters to bring. They're bringing Nini, they're bringing Bruno, and they're bringing Ichigo. Now, right from the get-go, there is a lot of enemies at the start. It's a very linear map too, so characters with beam and wide AoE can be really good here. In this case, they do decide to use Nini's SA3. That pretty much kills mostly everyone in front. So what this tells me is that if you are using Nini, you want to at least maybe flash step, try and get into the middle if possible to take out the enemies from the back. But mainly is that it does outright fill up the entire gauge with just one strong attack. So they take down those enemies. So this is definitely a stage you can just clear in pretty much one strong attack. So ideally, you shouldn't even get the gauge off until the next time your Nini is available, for example. Which in this case is what it's going to look like. So once more, since the map is very linear, you do have to be careful with the burn pulse and any status on when that is on the floor if your character isn't immune, because that definitely can ruin a run. And if you're going for 5 minutes straight, you don't want to have any mess ups like that, for example. So in this case, there's one wave, and then there's another wave right after that, and then another wave after that. So that's kind of unfortunate. You would love to have a beam in this situation, so maybe using your SA2 in the first room and then saving that SA3 for this room might be the way to go with this character. To at the very least get 1 or 2 of the waves. And then the next time she's available, stage number 7, just a set of enemies in front of her, another set 2. Looks like there's 4 waves overall, 5 waves actually, and these are going to be the poised enemies. I feel like given the linear structure of the maps, this one might be quite annoying to deal with, especially against those poison enemies if you can't kill them fast enough. So what you're going to see, as they are doing here in the showcase actually, is flash stepping all the way back to the start of the map, which ideally you don't want to do. You definitely want to try and maneuver around the enemies and stay close to the exit point. So when you do defeat the enemies like they do now, you know, you don't end up wasting upwards to 3-4 seconds. With that said, though, that was the video for today. A quick preparation guide for the next upcoming Limit Breaker quest, which again is scheduled to start on the 7th. The rules this time around, I will say, are definitely more restrictive. Mainly slot number 1, to be fair, because again, there's not that many good mind holo killers. Slot number 2 is definitely on the restrictive side too, not as restrictive, but given the fact that you're encouraged to bring any heart melee character, there's a lot of good characters you can bring, namely the most recently released Killgate, might even be better than Bruno, who knows, right? And then slot number 3, bring any technique character you want, bring Yatsuru, bring any character really for this particular slot. But if you have Quincy Ichigo, he might be really good in this particular case, since he does recover his strong attacks every time you move into the map. In the comments below, let me know what team you plan to use. I'm curious to see what you have cooked up, and I see you guys next time. Take care and peace.